Hi, I'm David Wiedenfeld. June is a big month for nesting, although some birds have been nesting since February, such as eagles and owls. Most of our resident birds, the ones that don't migrate and are here year-round, began nesting in May. But now the weather has turned warmer, all of the plants have turned green, and the migratory birds are all back, so nesting is in full swing. Even the birds that started their nests in May probably are still feeding nestlings and fledglings, so almost all the birds are busy with their nests and kids. So, with all of the overlapping nesting going on, June is the busiest month for nesting birds. First, let me get a couple of caveats out of the way. This time of year, a lot of people will notice a young bird on the ground outside of a nest. It's often one that can't yet really fly. This happens a lot. Baby birds leave the nest, that is, fledge, before they're really fully feathered. That doesn't mean there's a problem, though. In fact, this is normal. Don't touch the baby bird, and don't try to place it back in a nest. The parents know where their kid is. Very often they'll fuss at you if they see you approaching. The best thing to do is just leave the little bird alone. Do keep your dog or cat away. This is important. Then let the parents take care of it. The parent birds are very aware of where their babies are and will keep on feeding and caring for them. And the fledgling will be able to fly well in a day or two. Also, almost all of our birds are protected by law. Yes, if they decide to nest in the hanging basket on your porch or on a light fixture over your front door, they can be annoying and messy. However, you shouldn't disturb them. One thing about all of the songbirds and swallows that nest around our houses is that they have a pretty quick nesting cycle. It doesn't seem like it, but their entire nesting cycle is only a little more than 4 weeks. A few days for nest building, 2 weeks of egg laying and incubation, followed by 2 weeks of parents feeding the nestlings, and then they're gone. It doesn't really take long, so when they start nesting nearby, don't mess with them, just enjoy. You have nature at your house. Let me talk a little about some of the birds that commonly nest around our houses here in Fauquier County. I'm going to group them by types. First are the birds that nest in shrubs and trees around our yards, building their own nest. These include cardinals, one of our commonest yard birds. They like thick leafy shrubs or low branches in trees. Some others that are similar are the northern mockingbirds and gray catbirds. The catbirds are migrants and just got back in May from their wintering areas in Mexico and Central America. These birds all build a nice little nest like a cup using twigs and lining it with feathers and soft fibers. A couple of species like to really come almost into our houses. House finches, for example. They seem to really like to nest in hanging baskets on the porches of a house or plants in pots on the porch. They will build a nice little cup nest down among the leaves. Careful when watering the plants. You don't want to flood the nest. They may even choose a wreath hanging from the door. Carolina wrens will do this too. The wrens are even so friendly, they will come into a shed or garage and start building a nest. Once they decide on a place, it can take them only a couple of hours to have a good start on a nest. American robins, besides the cardinals, one of our most conspicuous birds in our neighborhoods, also build a nest in a shrub or branch of a tree. But they also like places under the eaves on top of a light fixture, or in the case of my house, on the supports under the deck. They really like this spot under my deck. They're there every year. The robins also build a cup nest, but they mix mud in the outer structure to make a harder nest, then line it with softer things. Their eggs are a beautiful blue color. Yes, that's where we get the name robin's egg blue. A couple of species that also like to nest under the eaves are barn swallows and eastern phoebes. The barn swallows are called that because they very often will nest under the eaves of barns or other farm buildings, but they do it on houses too. They also nest under bridges. Eastern phoebe is a kind of flycatcher. They may not be one of our most colorful birds, but they're very friendly. They like to nest on ledges under the eaves or under a bridge or culvert. They make a very nice little cup nest made with moss. Some birds like nest boxes. In the past, they would have used old woodpecker holes, but now we can make them a nest box that they like just as well. Some of the ones that do this around our houses include house wrens. Just like house finches, house wrens get their names because they very often hang out around our houses. Eastern bluebirds will use nest boxes, even in town in Warrenton, but they may be more common around farms. Where there are fields, tree swallows will also use the same boxes. Chickadees and titmice are also box nesters. They like boxes with smaller entrance holes, though. Most of these are birds that you can find even in the big city, like downtown Warrenton, but also around houses and barns out in the country, too. Wherever you live in Fauquier County, you probably have some or most of these birds nearby. If you'd like to have more birds living and nesting around your house, though, what can you do? Well, bird gardening is easy and fun. It is kind of late to start gardening this year, but this is the time of year most people are really thinking about gardening, and you can start planning now for next year's garden. Although some of our birds like lawns, robins and mockingbirds are examples of birds almost always seen where there is an area of lawn. Most of our birds like to have some structure. That is, not everything on one level. They like annual and perennial herbaceous plants, like many of our flowers, and shrubs and trees. They like diversity of plants, not just one kind or one size, so a yard with some lawn, some flowers, some shrubs, and some trees is often best. In general, they also like native plants much more than non-native ones, although some non-natives are very good for them. You can also decide what kinds of birds you want to make a home for. For example, hummingbirds want lots of flowers that produce nectar. Different kinds of plants produce different food sources, either in the way of insects or fruits and seeds. Other key characteristics include how much cover is provided, that is, places to hide from predators and hidden places to nest. And if you're not just interested in birds, but also butterflies and bees, you can combine all of these things because flowers and other plants good for birds are also good for these important pollinators too. So even though this is a presentation about birds, I'm going to mention that the library also has books about bird gardening and butterfly gardening, including a couple of new ones, like this one. These books and others will be listed on the library website. Finally, one more thing about birds. Although June is the biggest month for bird nesting, some birds may have 2 or even 3 nests in one year. Sometimes, if a nest fails due to a predator or a storm, they'll start a new one and give it another try. But they will also sometimes just finish one and start on the next. Most of the time they don't reuse the same nest and nest location though. Anyway, this does mean that you can have nesting birds not only now in June, but continuing on into July, and maybe even a few that start in July, ending in August. I wish your birds a good nesting season and good birding.